Good afternoon to you and welcome to this Next Step Support webinar on career readiness. My name's Matt, I'm with the Next Step Support team and we're joined by a panel here today and I'm just going to ask them to introduce themselves. So if we could start with Aisha, would you care to just tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My name is Aisha Suleiman and I work with educational institutions to help them understand the value of teaching cloud computing skills in today's market. And I show them how to teach those skills in their classroom with the AWS Educate program. So I'm an AWS Educate program manager, and AWS Educate is Amazon's global platform, and it helps students to prepare for the cloud-enabled jobs of tomorrow at no cost.
Fantastic. And Siobhan, would you mind?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So my name is Siobhan Scanlon. I'm the Early Careers Manager with Musgrave. Musgrave is Ireland's leading retail and wholesale business, and we feed 1 in 3 people in Ireland, employing over 41,000 people across all of our brands. When my role as Early Careers Manager, it's managing primarily our graduate development program. So we bring in grads straight from university and develop them to work in our business and to develop that early careers talent. I'm really passionate about just making sure that we get the people who are interested in their industry and align up with our company values. And I'm really looking forward to today just to share some of my own experiences with people from the last 13 years in this role.
Thank you very much. And Katerina?
Yeah, so I'm Katerina Rangel. I'm the Global Head of Admissions at the Intern Group. At the Intern Group, we inspire and encourage people to believe in and challenge themselves, discover their passion, and realize their potential. And we do this with 3 types of global internships. Our flagship program is our international program with programs across North America, South America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. We also offer domestic programs, and now most recently, we've launched our virtual internship program to help talented candidates from across the globe to boost their career from wherever they are. And I get to lead the admissions team.
Thank you very much. And Isabella?
Hi, I'm Isabella. I'm from Merkle. We're a digital marketing company based in London and Edinburgh, and we also have global businesses around the world. Our job is basically to help our clients advertise online. Our clients range from small businesses to big names like Warner Brothers, Emirates, Morrison's, whoever it might be. We're really kind of excited to see what the next year brings. We are really passionate about early careers and hiring at the graduate level. So we're excited to see what we can do next year, because I know that things are going to start going online a little bit more. Which works really well for us because we're a digital company, so everything going online is really exciting for us.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say thank you to all of our panel for joining us today. We have, so I'm going to explain a little bit about how this works. I can see someone's already discovered the question box on the right, and I think that's something that we're going to have to email out after this. The way this is going to work, we've got a few topics that we want to cover off, and if you can make it easier on everyone, the question box on the right, if you have a question that you really want answered, that you want visible, because I don't know how much time we're going to get towards the end of this session, please click the upvote button. If you upvote it, it will move to the top and we can start with the most popular questions when we get down to it. And the other thing is you may occasionally see me drop round a link. I won't demonstrate at the moment, but it will just pop up on your screen. If I can find a link that's relevant to what we're talking about, I'll try to drop that in there as well. And for whoever's just asked on the right-hand side, yes, I think we do put these live on Next Step Support as soon as we can, but bear with me, and I think the details will go out in an email afterwards. So I think one of the things that I also wanted to address just before we get into everything, I think everybody here is accepting applications for what they do. So we normally get a lot of questions in these webinars. Everybody's a bit unsettled. It's very difficult with social distancing when you're job hunting and people are worried whether applications are open, not open, are people still hiring? I think everybody here, when we just had a quick whip round earlier, is accepting some form of application. So please try not to ask questions about that. Let's keep it as useful as we can towards careers and to applications in general. So we're here to talk career readiness. And I think the first question that we want to address is, what are good things that you can do in lockdown, right? When you're social distancing and all you've got is a tiny room and a laptop. What is it that you can do to make yourself more appealing to companies? And who would like to start with that one? Should we start with Aisha? I'm just going clockwise around the screen from top to bottom.
Sure. Sorry, I was on mute there. So I think that we're really lucky that in this time, there's so many resources available online that you can use to sort of learn and develop new skills. I certainly have been keeping myself busy with that. So I run my own website and it's hosted on WordPress. So I've been looking at things like copywriting, for example, SEO, and really just trying to upskill myself. So I feel like there's so many websites where you get Cloud Guru, and one of the things is our program, so AWS Educate, and it's available to all students in the UK that are 16 and above, and it can help you to learn cloud computing skills. And just as an FYI, cloud computing has actually been listed as one of the top hard skills required by employers since around 2015. So the program is one thing that you can do. You just go to awseducate.com, and a lot of our content is based on the current job requirements in the market. So we've got what we call career pathways, and the career pathways take entry-level job requirements and what is required by the market, and it builds these pathways which you can take, and it gets students to understand the skills required for specific job roles. So things like website development, application development, being a solutions architect. The students can take those pathways and just upskill and start learning some of these cloud computing skills as well. Now, when I talk cloud computing, a lot of the time people think that it's only for tech students. One thing I want to say is even if you're not a tech student, it is still important to start learning that skill. So my background is purely business. So my first degree is in HR, second degree is in business management. But when I joined AWS, I had to sort of explain in the interview process, what do you actually know about AWS? Do you understand what cloud computing is? And also when I started my role about a year ago, I had to take our basic certification. So had to get up to speed pretty fast on the cloud computing world. So yeah, that's one thing I think a student can do. All you need is a laptop, and you can do that from your room as well.
Thanks. I think that's a really useful tip. I mean, there are a number of services out there as well, AWS Educate, but there's also I think we have an article on Next Step Support that I'm going to try and drop around in a second, where there's a young Irish student who is collating a lot of companies that are offering various free skills websites or skills sessions, or everybody is kind of banded together under lockdown, say, hey, look, you can try this out for the next 3 months because you're all at home and you've got a computer. I think that's really useful. Siobhan, what would your top tips be for what to do when you're social distancing?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this question ahead of the webinar, and I think I just already mentioned some great things that people can do from a hard skills perspective, and there's a huge amount of resources out there. I suppose for me, one of the things that really resonates with me at this point in time is a period of reflection. And what I'd encourage people to do is actually probably just take a look inside and answer some of the probably questions for themselves as to where they see their purpose and what kind of industry they'd like to see themselves. What are the kind of values that they would have in their life? And you say, okay, this is sounds very highfalutin, but there's a piece here, I think, for people to be able to understand, okay, well, what do I want to do in my life? So for example, I work in the food industry. It's retail and wholesale. The people who thrive in our business are people who understand what we stand for. So we have a purpose, which is about growing good business. We're really passionate about supporting small entrepreneurs, about really driving that food business for them. And people who understand that purpose and who want to be able to support that, and their values align with our values, then they do really well within that business. We are recruiting people straight out of college. They're not going to have the skill sets to be able to come in and do the job straight away within our business. But if they have the right attitude, and if they know that this is an industry that they want to come into, then it's going to be really much more, it's easier transition for them, and they'll be much more enthusiastic when you come across the challenging times. So what I'd encourage people to do right now is go outside, take a walk, fresh air, think about actually what motivates you, what drives you. Are you always reading blogs about food, for example? Is it cloud computing that really rocks your boat? If these are the things that you're passionate about, then look up the industry. Is it something that's going to suit your personality? Do you have connections in that already from people from college? How do you connect with those people on LinkedIn? Follow those companies, read blogs about them, understand more about that, and that'll help you get more excited and have a clearer vision of where you want to be.
Thank you very much. And I mean, there is something to be, I quite like the idea as well. You've got to do the reading, you've got to do the research, but taking that 5 minutes to go for a walk and really get your head in order, I think at the moment, if you can go for a walk, depending on where you're based, it's really useful. Katerina, what would you recommend I mean, you're looking at an intern perspective as well, so it's slightly different. What would you recommend people do while under lockdown?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't agree more with that side of like increasing your skills. There are just like millions of free online courses in whatever that interests you, and a lot of them are actually offered by Ivy League universities. We always recommend free code camp if you want to like get more of like a tech perspective. And then in terms of like getting ready for when we do come out of lockdown, improving your chances of getting a job by like spending more time on your applications, looking at which sector you really want to go into, working on your CV, getting your cover letter like completely ready. That way your application is stronger and it's really tailored to what you're looking for when we are coming out of lockdown. And then in terms of like getting those computing skills, what we're finding is in response to the coronavirus pandemic is more and more companies are looking for competent remote workers. So, you know, being able to like get that tech savviness, feeling comfortable of like working remotely, working at home. This is the best time to kind of like develop that skill.
Sorry, couldn't get myself off mute. Thank you. There are a number of good websites out there. I've just sent a quick link round because you mentioned free code camp, so I've just put that in the chat while I can. There are a number out there. I think there are various apps as well, like Swifty. I believe is still free, but I might be wrong. Isabella, how about you? What would you recommend as lockdown employability tips?
Yes, to echo what kind of these women have already said, I think anything you can do to enhance your personal development. So whether that is something that you do for yourself, maybe some meditation that you take up, you do some YouTube yoga, which is what I've been doing, things that are free and really accessible and that you might start to enjoy. Definitely doing that. And also employable skills that you might want to develop. The women have kind of mentioned online courses. For us as a business, obviously we work in digital marketing, which is a lot of online advertising. And as you know, the best place for that is Google. So we work really closely with a lot of Google advertising platforms, and Google are fantastic at having a lot of online free training. So if you just type into Google free skills shop, you can go online and do some training on their platforms, learn a little bit about what pay-per-click marketing is, how AdWords, which is a tool that we use for digital marketing, works, and all of those things, Google Garage, anything like that, that will really help you get a flavor for what we do. And you might start the course and think, absolutely not, this is way too technical, maybe this area of digital marketing isn't for me. But I don't see that as time wasted. That's still something that you've learned. Maybe it's just not your thing. So take what you did enjoy about that course and go and do something else. So if you enjoyed the content creation that you heard about on that course, go and Google a course on content creation. Or if you love the coding side but not the creative side, go and do a coding course. So definitely trying to do a course in anything to see if you like it or not is always good. But my biggest suggestion would be everybody, if you have internet access, has access to LinkedIn. And while people are online, we're getting a lot of questions from young people about how they build their network, their connections, how they can speak to people who do certain jobs, because obviously things like insight days or shadowing people or work experience isn't done in the office anymore. So I would really urge you to get on LinkedIn, to make a profile that you're proud of. Again, there's loads of training on YouTube. You can type in, how should I make my LinkedIn profile, or tips for a great LinkedIn profile. And someone on YouTube will record themselves telling you what they think is the best thing to do, so you can listen to their tips. And then once you're on LinkedIn, you can type in a job title that you're interested in. So for us, you might type in digital marketing executive, and you'll get a list of people who do that job maybe around London or have that job title. And I think it's fine, like at this time, to drop them a message and just say, hey, you're doing a job that I'm interested in. I don't know anyone else that does it. Would you be able to tell me what it's really like? Because I want to get a flavor for it. And that costs you nothing. It costs them nothing. If they don't want to reply or they're too busy, then they're in completely their, they can just not reply, which is a little bit annoying for you. But it means that you've not imposed on them in any way. So you could always reach out to them and ask them what the job is really like. Because I think a lot of the time what we hear from graduates is that they don't really know what jobs are out there. Unless you want to be a doctor, a dentist, a teacher, hard to know what jobs really exist. And even on this call, there's people from different industries, like the food business, and you'll have loads of people within a food business. There's a HR team, there's a finance team, there's an operations team. Same within digital marketing. You don't just have to look at a business and think, oh, they do digital marketing, I would only talk to them if I want to do digital. We also hire people for our HR team, or we hire people for our finance team. So really go about learning what jobs are out there and what job you want to do or would be interested in. And if you don't know what are out there, speak to people on LinkedIn, or just in the downtime that you have chatting with your friends over FaceTime, ask them, what do your parents do, by the way? Like, what does your aunt do? Like, is there anyone in your family that does a really cool job that I never have heard of? Tell me about it. And really get a sense of like what is out there is what I would suggest.
Thank you. I think that this is the time to be contacting people. I mean, I remember doing that as a student, trying to catch journalists out to try and ask them what their job was like. And people who are way over caffeinated, far too little sleep, you'd be surprised how many people actually do come back to you. I just want to address this because there's all sorts blowing up in the question list, which is a lot to do with which courses are useful, because we've talked a lot about online courses and things you can do with your free time, whether that's yoga or something that defines your skills. We can't cover. I've in the last sort of few minutes, I've seen people asking about law and accounting and now digital marketing. There are so many different areas. I think here for this webinar, we're trying to be broadly useful to careers as a whole and to you in your job search. So I think that when it comes down to the specifics, following Isabella's advice and actually reaching out to people and saying, hey, I'm interested in career X, what courses would be useful? But I just want to ask to everybody in this webinar, is there such a thing? Are there some courses, do you think all courses are equal? Is getting any skill at the moment useful, or are there particular things that you would recommend people focus on if it was not job specific?
Are we going in order again?
I think that's probably easiest if that works for you.
Again, it goes back to the point a lot of people have made already. It depends on what you want to do. I mean, I've spoken about cloud computing being a top skill and demand skill for employers. So looking to the future, that is something that generally people should be looking into and trying to learn about, but it does also depend on what you want to do. One thing I would say is, if I could go back and speak to myself when I was trying to think about jobs and so on, I would have told myself, don't overthink it. This is going to sound weird because you can always change your mind. One thing that we don't often talk about is you can actually change your career. So like myself, my background was HR and recruitment for the past couple of years. I switched over completely and I moved over to the education team in the tech world. If you had told me years and years ago that this is what I was going to end up doing, I would have been like, okay, that's weird. So I would say use the courses as a way to explore and actually find out what you want to do. So if you're going through them, don't lock yourself in, I would say, too much. I mean, if you've already figured out what you want to do, that's great. But also use the courses as an opportunity to expand your worldview and also explore. You might be a tech student and start doing something to do with digital marketing, and you're like, hey, I actually really like this. There's someone on my team who used to be in product development, and now she's switched over to the marketing team. So don't limit yourself so much. Think of the courses as a way to explore what you actually want to do. That's what I would say.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Siobhan, do you want to keep rolling around?
Yeah, great. Look, I think everything that was said there is perfect. What I would say, and I'm similar, I've changed careers many times. So my degree is languages. I've taught English. I've worked in a call center. I've gone into HR, and I'm now did my master's in coaching. So I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. So look, you have time. I'd say that to you. As an employer, if I'm looking at a graduate who's coming to work with us, the course has a bearing to an extent. And I say that in the sense of there are some specific areas such as IT or data analytics, for example, there's a specific degree that we may be looking for. However, the vast majority of our graduate opportunities, there can be from any discipline. And because we're looking to develop those people ourselves internally. So if I take a buying graduate, for example, then we've had them from law, we've had them from science, we've had lots of different backgrounds. So it's not necessarily the courses that is being studied or whatever courses you do during this time. It's more about your ability to understand those skills and how you will transfer them into the job and how you will learn. And that's really what an employer wants at this point of your career. It's to understand your potential. You'll have a certain amount of experience and you'll be able to bring through some of your certifications, but a certification is not worth anything unless you can actually understand and bring it into practical experience and to be able to take that knowledge. Be that knowledge to say it's something actually I don't want to do for the rest of my life, and that's absolutely fine. Or yeah, I'm really passionate about this and I can think about how I can add value to the company. But really, I would just say to people, great, go out, get all the skills. But if I'm looking at somebody who's got a whole load of courses, all the skills, but can't actually tell me what that does for them, or to be able to bring that skills into our business, it's going to be very difficult for me to be able to progress that person, because it's just learning for the sake of getting a piece of paper. Whereas you want somebody who's like, I know this, I'm interested in this, I can bring something to your company because of this.
That's don't study a course without having a purpose for it. I think that really is that's kind of the key lesson, right? If you maybe need to gain confidence, you go out and you take a professional speaking, advocacy over if you can do advocacy over FaceTime or equivalent. There has to be that option, but you need to have a reason for taking the course that you're taking, not just to fill gaps on the CV. That makes sense. Katerina, how about you? What courses would you recommend for applying for internships, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the list it's endless, to be honest. I would say what's super important is not choices there are, because that could just paralyze you and you end up doing nothing. So you really do need to focus on, like, what are you interested in? Do you want to learn a new language skill? There are apps like Duolingo. There are a lot of things you can do at home. Or if you do want to go forward and try and get like some actual like work experience on your CV at this time, but I know there aren't as many job opportunities due to the pandemic, you can do things like volunteering initiatives. Is there a cause or a company that you really care about that you want to like use, and then you can boost your skills, and you can also kind of start to build your network. I can also just say that we have found that over 50% of our host organizations, which are across the globe, are willing to host interns virtually this summer. And if you do want to like get some hands-on work experience, our fields range from anything from accounting, engineering, law, PR, and marketing. We have over 25 different career fields. So if you do want to start building your network professionally, that's another great option.
Thank you. Isabella, sorry, we'll reverse the order in a minute and start with you next.
No, please. I find it really interesting. I guess actually what I want to say is, although online courses are fantastic, and now people are talking about them because for the first time you have time just sat at home with a laptop, but I'd just like to say that they're not essential by any means. In previous years, we've had people apply who just don't have time to do an online course. They've been at uni or they've been working. They can't take a month out to do online courses. And just like the previous speaker was saying, we can take people on from history backgrounds, English, languages. You don't have to have done marketing. We offer in-house training. So we get everyone up to the same standard in-house. We do that once you join us. So don't stress too much about doing the online training. That's not something that historically we've ever required. It's just something that you can do if you want to do that. But also I would say there's been some kind of interesting questions in the box, not just about online training, but also soft skill development. And that's kind of a really interesting one. It is hard to build soft skills, like learning how to present on a webinar or something. If you don't have a webinar to present on, you can't exactly ask your family like, hey, can you all jump on a webinar so I can present to you? Unless you have a really supportive family, in which case, sure, do that. That's awesome. But I would just say any chance that you get when you're FaceTiming your friends, or if you're on a Zoom quiz with your family or whatever it is, try and think about how you're coming across on the screen, because that is going to be something that moving forward, I'm not sure we're going to be able to get away from. If we're not able to meet you for an interview in person, the next best thing is doing it online. So it is important to, I guess, make yourself as comfortable as you can with the screen and with a laptop and presenting to a camera. We, as a company, moved to video interviews at the first stage of our process a few years ago, and people are still quite nervous of it, but a lot of companies are doing it. And I would say we really don't do it to trip you up. Like, we won't be moving to online interviewing because we want to make it harder for anyone. If anything, we just want to make it, one, accessible for more people because more people can tune in. But also it's just a way for us to get to know you better rather than a really long application form. So don't see companies as kind of, if everything's going online, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That gives you a chance to showcase who you are, your personality. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to get that across in person rather than on paper. So just kind of have a little think about those things. But yeah, don't stress too much about the courses, I'd say. And also Google is your best friend. Just type into Google like top 10 digital marketing courses, and it tends to tell you like the top 10 that are online.
Thank you. I think we were just about to sort of move on to soft skills and kind of what you need to develop while you're in lockdown, and maybe how you can do it. So moving away from the more sort of academic, I need to get a course or I need to get a certificate in this. Isabella, I'm sorry, because I'm going to start with you this time, and we'll go the other way. But what are you've already mentioned, get your friends and family on there, get that kind of communication and face-to-face video skills going. What other soft skills, can people and should people be developing in lockdown that you would really think are important at the moment?
Resilience at the moment. We're all in a time where no one's really in their comfort zone. If you had loads of plans for this summer, they've all been scrapped. You're having to deal with disappointment, how that makes you feel. If friends are no longer seeing you because they're really anxious or they're living with vulnerable people, you might feel a sense of resentment that you don't have your social life coming back anytime soon. These are all petty things, but to be honest, they're going to make an impact on you. And how you learn to cope with these small things is really going to help you when in a business circumstance, I don't know, a client shouts at you, and it happens because they're stressed. So how you learn to deal with that and that you don't take it personally, it's not an attack on you, the client's just stressed out. You need to just learn to breathe and carry on and get on with whatever you're doing. So I would say focus on being resilient at this time. But also soft skills can be anything. So for example, we had someone interview with us the other day who during lockdown she is passionate about sewing and that kind of thing. And she's created masks that she is now selling on Etsy, just very basic face masks. And she told us for ages about how she set up her Etsy shop, how she designed the masks. And none of that is particularly relevant to digital marketing, but it was interesting because what came across was her passion. And a lot of the time, that's a skill that we're looking for. We're looking for that soft skill of being able to convey passion, to be passionate. So if you do anything in this time that you're passionate about, even if you work with your next door neighbor, if she's or he is elderly, and you build a relationship with them and you bring them food, like those are soft skills that you're building. Don't underestimate those small things, and how you build that relationship so they feel comfortable with you during their food shop. That's important. So anything you can do that helps you, keeps you going, helps socially other people around you, then that would be great. Do those things as well.
Thank you. And I think that's something we've mentioned on another webinar prior to this was, even volunteering with the NHS. They have the Volunteer SAM website. I'll try and pop a link to that in just a second. But yeah, there are plenty of things out there, and even government schemes that you can get involved with at the moment. That some of them you can even do from home. Whether it's just connecting with people who are feeling quite sort of lonely at the moment and need someone to talk to on the text or on the telephone. There's plenty you can do out there at the moment. All right, so Katerina, how about you? What sort of soft skills would or should people be developing at the moment?
Absolutely. I know we're all going to say communication because we're all learning how to communicate. Hello? Can you hear me?
Sorry, a bit of a delay on the line, that's all.
Okay, great. Again, I think we're all going to say communication, right? Because we're all starting to learn how to communicate in different ways on Zoom, on Slack, all of those things. I can't stress more that adaptability is so incredibly important to go from doing an in-person job to doing a remote job. It's such a different environment. And I think it's really easy to kind of lose that communication on programs like Teams or Slack, which are fantastic programs and they connect all of us. But one of the things my team tries to do is we always try and do several meetings a week that are over Zoom. So we can all see each other, we can all talk, because obviously we can get lost in just our Slack channel talking with each other through written. But being able to hear someone's voice, their expressions, it's such an important thing to maintain, especially while we are at home in lockdown. So that's what I would.
Thank you. I'm going to start popping some links into the chats that you know where everybody's from and whatnot, because I think some people here I can see arrived after 2 p.m. so they're asking some questions. I will start dropping some links in as we're going on. Siobhan, how about you? What soft skills should we be focusing on, and what would you hope to see when people are applying to you?
Yeah, look, I think some of them have already been touched on in terms of resilience and adaptability are obviously key things. But one of the things that I would really encourage people to think about is how you can deal with ambiguity. So, because I suppose quite a lot of time for when you come through the educational process, a lot very structured, and you know what you're doing, what time of day, what you need to do to get your 2-1 or your 1H, whatever that is, and you're really clear in terms of what the expectations are. Coming into work, it's a very different ball game, because you may be told, okay, look, I need a report on this. Okay, what do you want? I don't know. I'll recognize it when I see it. And that creates a lot of stress for people to be able to understand in terms of the level of ambiguity that you are going to get within a business. So if you are a person who struggles with that, it's really good to understand, okay, what would help you to be able to navigate through that. So being able to ask questions in terms of clarifying what the expectations are and getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, I think is a really key piece that people would be well advised to be able to practice. And I say practice because it's not easy. We all struggle with it at times. We have a comfort zone that we like to be in. So maybe just look at pushing it outside of your comfort zone a bit more to understand, yeah, that makes me a bit nervous, but okay, I'll try it. See what's that going to do for me? And you'll survive. Yeah, you have survived so far, and it'll just be another skill that you'll be able to add to it. The other thing that I think is a really good resource for anybody to have a look at, if anyone that listens to TED Talks, there's Carol Dweck. She speaks a lot about growth mindset. And nowadays within organizations where there's going to be huge emphasis coming up on emotional intelligence, and your growth mindset is very much linked towards understanding how we progress, that learning from mistakes, being open to trying different things, and building on that progress. And I think if you can master that at the beginning of your career, you're going to be leaps and bounds ahead from where I was, definitely in my 20s. And so now I'm kind of coming to these concepts and like, God, that's amazing. And that's what the senior leadership programs focus on. They focus on giving these senior leaders the ability to be able to think strategically, to think about growth mindset. If you can do that early on, I think it's amazing. So that my tips would be get comfortable being uncomfortable, and look up growth mindset, TED Talks, Carol Dweck, or you can just Google it. I know that Googling isn't the answer to everything, but growth mindset, it's a huge area of interest, and I think it's something very worthwhile for people to consider.
Thank you. And it's really, it's keeping a record of it as well. When you have pushed yourself outside of your comfort zone, I find is really, it's so easy once you've done something and you're like, oh, I've got that now. And a month down the line, you think, no, I've always known how to do that. But actually keeping a record of it, you're like, okay, this made me uncomfortable. I actually took the time to do this, writing it down so that next time when you think, oh, I've always known how to do something, it's on a Post-it note that's attached to your CV that you're reworking, or something that means you remember it, I think is really useful.
Yeah. Actually, can I just add something there? I just saw a comment in the chat that somebody asked if employers value working in supermarket. I work for a supermarket business, so yes, hugely. But there's a huge amount of transferable skills that you can bring from your part-time jobs, from volunteering, from hobbies, and think about those into competencies you can bring in. So sorry, I just saw it pop up and my eye was drawn to it. So I just had to comment. And employers will value all types of experience. Just be happy and comfortable to be able to talk about that and how that makes you who you are.
Thank you. No, yeah, never underestimate the power of a supermarket job. I've been there as well. Aisha, how about you? What are the soft skills you look for? Because we've already sort of covered the kind of AWS educating, getting your coding skills and getting your software and cloud-based computing skills down.
Yeah, so just before I touch on that, I like what you said about keeping track of your achievements. Now, again, going back to when I was younger, I wish someone would have told me that. It is really important to do that, especially when you do start working, because when things like promotions come up and you're having those development conversations with your manager, it's really important to keep track of that. So that's something I actually do on a monthly basis. I have like a document where I just write down things that I've done. And you can even do it on a weekly basis, because what tends to happen is 2 months down the line, you'll have done something great, but because you didn't write it down, you just forget about it. So I think that's actually a really good point that you made there, Matt. So just wanted to reinforce that point. In terms of soft skills, so one thing I like to do is every year, LinkedIn actually publishes the in-demand hard and soft skills required by employers. And what's interesting is I was just looking at the list. So the top 5 actually touch on what's also been discussed. So someone mentioned emotional intelligence. That's actually in the top 5 list. And I think you also mentioned adaptability, Isabella, but you called it resilience. So that's also on the list. So I really encourage students to have a look at that list. It's published every year and it's updated. So that's a really good resource. But in terms of the top one was creativity. So the number 1 soft skill is creativity, which makes perfect sense. Because especially now in the situation that we're in, you need to be able to come up with creative solutions to problems. So like with my role, for example, I used to do a lot of customer meetings, usually in person, and a lot of our events were in person, and we really tried to have that close customer touch. But now we've had to think about how we still maintain that relationship with customers and still deliver a good service to them, but doing it virtually. So coming up with creative ways to do that is really, really important, I think. And then the other 2 that were mentioned were persuasion and collaboration. Again, also very important, especially because now a lot of the work is being done virtually. So really important to see how do you ensure that you're still collaborating with your team virtually or in person when things do become go back to normal, and persuading people as well. I think that's just a good general life skill to have, getting people to see things from your point of view. And I think in terms of persuasion, you can try that with your friends and family, especially when you see that you have disagreements with them. Look at how you've handled those disagreements. Did you just sort of tell them you're stupid, you're wrong? No, that's not really great in the workplace. Do you kind of stay calm and also empathize with them, so see things from their perspective as well? And I think that's a really important skill to have, because you're going to have disagreements with your colleagues, you're going to have times when you don't see eye to eye, but being able to step away and see the other person's point of view and convince them to see things your way as well is really important.
Thank you. I think that's all really useful. I'm just keeping an eye on the question bar on the right as well. And so people who are saying, look, we will send a follow-up email after this. I actually want to come to one of our, just one more of the questions that we have on our list, because I think it's something that people are asking about. We've mentioned briefly LinkedIn here and there, but it's how best is to reach out to employers at the moment, like just the really concrete examples. And a lot of people that are in the question list are asking for LinkedIn links and website links. I'm sending everybody's websites around as I go, but I think we will try and get a follow-up email if the panel would like to share their LinkedIn, because this is it's obviously, it's a social media, it's their choice whether people want to connect. But so let's start with Isabella again. What's the best way to reach out to an employer or to a recruiter at the moment, do you feel?
Sorry, I was on mute. So firstly, do a bit of research into their company and their careers page. So literally just Google their company and put in careers page and it comes up. And see if they are currently hiring for a position that you're interested in. For me personally, when people reach out to me, I find it so much easier to help them if they tell me why they're getting in touch. So if they're getting in touch just because they've seen our website and it looks like a fun company to work at, great, then I can direct you to look at the different jobs that might be on offer, see if one of them takes your fancy. Whereas if you've already gone on the website and you tell me that it is this specific job that you are interested in, I can come back to you with, great, this would be the next steps. So when you are reaching out to an employer, in order to make it easy for them to reply and give you something helpful, make sure you're clear on what you want. So yeah, just go online and see what they've got on their careers page would be my biggest advice. Obviously on ours at the moment, I know that you might go on there and see that the roles that are open are a lot of the ones that say they need experience. Never be disheartened. Companies have kind of a seasonality, well, some companies do, for their hiring. So for example, we always tend to not hire many early careers people around summertime, just because it doesn't work for us in terms of our hiring schedule. We tend to open our early careers roles around September and then again in January. So for us, that's when our early careers roles will become opening. So don't be disheartened when you go on a company's careers page if you don't see a job right then and there that works for you. If that's a company that's caught your eye, just make a note of them in your mind, and then every few months check back in. And if there is a job then that interests you, reach out to that recruiter or head of early careers and say to them, this is the job that interests me. What would be my next steps? Can I ask you some questions? That would be my biggest advice at the moment. Yeah, just reach out with a direct question, I guess.
Thanks. And I think that kind of makes the point as well, that it's not always just about how you connect, it's about what you say when you do. You know, you need to be asking the right kind of questions and coming across in a professional manner, because it's, I mean, a lot of people sort of when they're applying for jobs will collect LinkedIn profiles like nobody's business, but never actually send a message or never actually express interest in the right group. So
yes, and also, sorry, I might caution that with know the company style. So when people reach out to me, sometimes they're just like, hey, I just wanted to ask you this and that. And that's fine, because we're a digital marketing, fairly chilled kind of, that's our style. If you're writing to a law firm and you start with, hey, how you doing? That is not going to go down well. So also know who you're communicating with and communicate with them in the style of that business and that job, I would say.
Really sound words. Don't open the email with LOL and things like, which, yeah, we've had surprises in the past. Katerina, how about what's the best way, do you think, to reach out if you're looking to connect with an employer at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't agree more with what Isabella said about researching the company before you reach out. And also just that basic sweep of the website, and then doing those things like looking over your own CV, preparing if you're going to be doing an interview, and know how to market yourself. I can't stress enough, recent graduates that come and you ask them, like, what is your skill set? What could you bring to an opportunity? And they're not really sure what to say. So feel comfortable also marketing themselves. I think that a lot of people feel uncomfortable saying, like, I have great communication skills. I have experience on these online platforms. So do that preparedness so that you can basically, we all kind of have to sell ourselves when we go into a job interview, right? So make sure you have that in your pocket. And then when you do the initial reach out, again, look and see, are they hiring? And if they're not, but you see what different positions that they usually have in the company, let them know why you're interested in it, and let them know what skill set you would bring with you and what you could offer the company. And definitely make sure that you have either the skills they're looking for or something that would be transferable. If you've come from a background and you have no experience in the field and you don't know how to say how you would be able to apply your skills, honestly, a recruiter is just going to look you over. So do your part in terms of preparing for that. Thanks.
And I think that's nice just to include the bit about sort of promoting yourself a little bit as well when you reach it. I mean, it doesn't need to be, I'm a polymath and I figure you need me. Be sort of professional about it. Look, hey, I'm a recent graduate. I've got these skills and this degree. Really interested in this field. What can I get involved with? I think that's interesting. Siobhan, sorry.
Yeah. So I just to add on everything else. I mean, do the research on the company. But what I would also say in terms of doing your research on the company, find out what social media platforms they're on and follow them and what kind of communications they do, because that'll give you a sense as well in terms of how they interact with people. From that perspective. So are there certain hashtags that they're using when they do their news updates or things like that, so that you're following the same kind of trends and you understand what's happening within that organization. So that's one piece of it. What we're similar to what Isabel said, our early careers would tend to be in specific time periods. So it would normally be kind of September, October kind of period, and then again in January. So again, similarly, if you go to our website right now, Musgrave Graduates, then you're going to see we're not currently recruiting for that, but we'll be September, October. So if you're going to be emailing companies outside of that hiring window, then you will get a response back, but more than likely we're going to say, look, follow us on social media because we'll be recruiting in such a certain period of time. So adjusting yourself, it's great to know you're interested, absolutely fantastic, but keep an eye in terms of, do they have linked social media accounts, and then gauge it that way. One thing I think that's really important for people as well is to understand that the application processes that are there for a reason, because we do get large volumes coming in and we want to make it as fair as possible for people to be able to go through their process. So what we'd encourage people to do as you go through the process, if you're not successful at one stage, don't necessarily get disheartened. I didn't get the job the first time I applied for Musgrave. I had to come back 18 months later and reapply again. Those things happen. But learn from that process. participate fully in the application process, ask questions as you go along through that, do that communication. But if you don't complete the process, then you're just doing yourself out of an opportunity. But also bear in mind that you will have to go through that step to be able to get to the point where you may have face-to-face conversation with somebody, and that face-to-face conversation can really leave an impact for the employer at the end of the day. We have had people who've come through from an assessment centre perspective who may not have been successful 1 year. We've given them feedback and they've reapplied it and they've been successful and been amazing because they've taken the feedback we've given them and they're really passionate and very clear that's what they want to do. But it was their communication that they came through afterwards and taking on board that from what they heard from us and us as well, making sure that we're keeping open to consider that person again. That allowed us to be able to hire those people. So it's probably slightly off tangent from what we're saying in terms of the communication piece, but I just wanted to bring it through because it is communication style that sometimes people get frustrated because if it is early careers, it's large volume and people get sometimes get automated emails at certain points in time. Bear in mind that that is part of a process at times, and you will get to a stage where you'll get to speak to somebody and that impression that you leave with them, and similarly the impression that you leave of the company, because you may say, actually, you know what, it's not somewhere I want to work for. And that's fine too. So just to bear in mind that this is a process for you to learn as much as you can about the industry in which you want to work and to see is it going to be the right fit for you at the end of the day.
Thanks. And I think that goes a little bit back to what Isabella was saying earlier about, if you have time at the moment and you've got a supportive family, get them on the Zoom call, start doing your interview practice, start, get used to that kind of face-to-face presentation. It really, it's worth trying while you have the time to do it and everybody has, a computer at home. Aisha, just if you'd like to tell us sort of how you think people should be connecting with employers at the moment, then we'll move on to some open questions for the last sort of 15 minutes.
I think all the points that have been made are pretty good. So the point about having the clear ask, but doing the research first, I think that's really important. A lot of times I get messages on LinkedIn, people asking me questions, and I go on a student recruitment site and I see that the question's been covered, and I'm like, someone hasn't done their research. So yeah, definitely do the research first and make sure that if you're asking something, it's not something that hasn't already been covered. And then also nailing down your elevator pitch. So a lot of the times I see students sort of know what they've done, but they may not necessarily have it done what they're actually looking for. So being clear about what you're looking for and also what you've done, those two bits are really important as well. So think of it, if someone asks you like in a minute, what have you done? What are you looking for? What's going to be your answer? So sort of nailing that down. And then to the point about staying connected on social media, that's a really good point, especially if they might be posting things that they have on, they may not necessarily be on the website. So say, for example, they're organizing like a virtual event, maybe it's not on the main website, but they'll post that on their LinkedIn page, and then you can say, oh, look, that's going on. And then that's something you can plug into and attend as well. So yeah, all really good points.
Thanks. And I think that's worth remembering for those of you out there who are looking at connecting on LinkedIn or whatever it might be, just to make sure that your social media feeds are looking professional. That's the obvious comment, but it's worth reminding again and again, monitor yourself, look at this and say, if I was looking to hire this person, would I like to see these posts there? I'm just going to open up the questions, and I think it's probably easier if we just leave this open to whoever wants to answer. There'll probably be a little bit of crosstalk, but we'll manage that as we go. So I think the first one that comes in, could you tell us what you would tell yourself if you could go back in time, read your employability skills?
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to go. Firstly, have confidence that they actually have some skills. But it's interesting, I was reading a book recently that I would highly recommend, and it sounds a bit biased in terms of it's called How Women Rise. It's by Marshall Goldsmith and Sally Higgleson, but it's valid for every gender from that perspective. Some really, really good tips. But a lot of it is just understanding how our own behaviors and thinking can get in our way. So as a student right now, or as about to enter into the job market, you have a lot of potential. You have a lot of skills that you've already developed through college, through volunteering, through unpaid work, through just being a member of society. Have confidence that that will continue on into the workplace, and that you will be able to adapt and you will be able to learn, and that it's okay to make mistakes as you go along. You will learn from those mistakes. Hopefully you won't make them again, but if you do, then hopefully you'll learn even more from that, and just accept that that's part of how we learn as human beings and how we'll develop. So if I were going back to to my stellar career at the very beginning, that's certainly something that I'd be recommending to read that book, How Women Rise, but also just have the confidence in terms of I did have a lot of ability and just trust in those instincts, and to be open to taking that feedback from people as well, like who try to help you along the way. Because feedback is intended to be helpful. We may not always hear it a lot, but the intention there is to help us along the way.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go looking for a link to that book. I'll try and pop that round to everybody in just a second. And would anyone else like to say what they would go back and tell themselves? Oh, go on, Katerina.
I can follow. I would say network is the biggest one, and not just the traditional network we know in terms of like professionally, but look at different clubs that you're interested in. Is there a book club? Is like find groups of people that are gonna both have similar perspectives to you and different perspectives, and get into like those conversations and just grow your network, because at this point, like the world is so global and it's so connected that being able to know people from all across the world, it's invaluable.
Thank you. I think if we keep moving, we'll move on to one of the other questions. So this comes in, as employers, would it be a problem to not have experience with paid jobs, as instead we chose to focus on building skills that are relevant to the jobs we want to work in? So it's sort of a transferable skills question. Who would like to go with it? Do we need paid jobs or focused skills?
No, that's the simple answer. No, you don't need to have had a paid job. If you can demonstrate the skills and you can demonstrate you're fit for the role, I don't think whether or not you've been paid for it matters that much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I was
Know yourself and what you've overcome in kind of your life and how that's taught you something. So, for example, we worked with someone who they'd pretty much cared for their sibling from day one. Their parents weren't able to be around or wasn't around. And they actually had more kind of leadership skill and a sense of responsibility than anyone else I've ever seen in an interview day. So don't underestimate what you've kind of gone through in your life and how you may have got transferable skills from that as well. Think about kind of those things as well.
Thank you. I think that's really useful. So we're coming back to courses and LinkedIn and things like that again. So we've got a question here. How should we go about connecting with people on LinkedIn? Is it a case of the more people you connect with, the better? I think we sort of addressed this one, but would anyone care to
go with it? I'd say the more people you connect with is great, but a connection isn't as great as if they connect back with you. And the way to do that is, like I said, in that 300 words when you reach out to them, be clear about what you want. Emailing someone being like, hey, wondered if I could have 15 minutes of your time. That's not really enticing for anyone to give you 15 minutes of their time for a chat or a quick cup of tea or something. Whereas if you email them and say, hey, I'm interested in X, I saw this job, can we talk about it? Then that person will reply with a response because you've asked them for exactly a specific thing. So try not to be too vague or too long and fluffy in kind of what you're wanting from that person.
Yeah, I would just add to that as well in terms of your connections. Be conscious of who you're connecting with and the purpose for it. So what I mean by that is I'm happy to connect with people on LinkedIn, but there's a piece for me in terms of I work in early careers, which is fine. I can give you guidance in terms of application process, but it may be more useful for you to connect with somebody who's gone through the graduate program within our business, who will then be able to say, actually, you know what, I came through their program. I'm doing the buying program. This is the experience that I had. And you can through LinkedIn, you can do searches in terms of people's degree backgrounds or where they're working or the kind of key career experiences that they've had. So it'll be useful for you to get a sense in terms of, this is how this person connected within, progressed within the organization. And those would be more meaningful. So you could connect, hopefully they accept it, but connect with them and say, look, I see that you've done this program. Would you mind if connecting with me? I'm really interested in it because of X, Y, Z. And I know that the vast majority of our graduates would be more than happy to share their experiences with people who are genuinely interested and want to get ahead. And they do advise quite a few people who applied through the program. So when you are looking at that connection, by all means, look at the early careers people and recruiters. But also look for that search in terms of the job that you're actually looking for, and to see if you can connect with people and just find out more about the role that way.
Thank you. And I think we've got a little bit of a quality versus quantity theme going on in some of these questions. And there's another one here that I think is quite useful. I'm just going to see if I can, scroll back to this in the chat. What advice would you give regarding striking a balance between the volume of applications sent versus focusing on spending time personalizing applications to employers? I think this should generate a few responses. Who would like to go?
Yeah, happy to. Sorry, Katrina, go ahead.
I think you should personalize every application. I know that's a lot of work, but if you're looking for a job that you're passionate about, that's in your field, you should do your research. You should see what qualifications they're looking for. And when you write that cover letter, it should be very specific to that job, how you're going to fulfill it, and why you're the right person for it.
Yeah. I'm actually going to offer a different perspective from one side. It depends on the application process you're going through. So for example, for us, there are a number of online steps. So you'll have to do, there's online assessments and there's a video interview plus a CV. So in terms of personalizing your CV, yes, do it to the extent to which you can. To be honest with you, a cover letter is only going to be seen at the very end once you've got through the online assessments and once you've gone through the video piece. So, and it's really just to give a quick sense in terms of, okay, where the person has come from an academic perspective. So I would say, yes, do personalization to an extent, but if you know that it's going to be a large, it's a large volume campaign and there's going to be a number of online steps, then consider first and foremost before submitting your application, I would say, right, is this the industry I want? Tailor your CV to the extent to which you can do that, and then participate fully within your application process to the best of your ability, rather than spending an hour or 2 hours crafting a cover letter that may not necessarily be written because you didn't pass the first online assessment, or you missed the email. So that would be just another thing to consider as you're going through that process.
Yeah, just to chip in there, with our application process, we don't really ask for a cover letter. And to be honest, we're trying to move away from even reading CVs. We focus more on the fact that when someone applies, we ask two main questions, which is number one, why do you think you'd be suited to this role? Like, what is it about digital marketing that you like? And then we ask you a specific question about that area of digital marketing that you've applied for, and we ask what you've learned about it. So you could go away and do some research, then come back and tell us about it. Those two things aren't going to take you years of your life. They can be quite quick, but that's what we want to see is your effort in answering those questions rather than tailoring a CV. So I'd say before you spend hours tailoring 20 CVs to 20 different companies, maybe go on the website first and see if you can find out what the application process is. Because if they're a company that maybe they don't CV at all now, there's a lot of companies that are moving away from even taking CVs. It's all online assessments. So for that company, you might not need to tailor a CV massively. Whereas there might be another company that is very old school and still wants a CV, 2-page cover letter. So for that company, you will. So again, try and do your research into the company before you waste your time tailoring tons of CVs and things. Like, think about the company itself.
I think that so the understanding your application process is really key. That's come out of that, and that there will be everybody here is lovely, and you can put a face to the name, and you're talking to people who are involved in recruitment. But there will be processes where paper sifts take place, and there will be sort of point scoring systems that you need to get through before they get to the cover letter. But that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've said when we get to that cover letter stage, that needs to be personalized, because it is not always a good look to have the "Dear Sir, Madam, I'm interested in your company X," to have it as a template. That's something that I think a lot of the employers that we've spoken to connected to Next Step Support always say, we don't just want that really, really generic covering letter. But as I say, do step in and correct me, anybody, if I'm wrong on that. So we're running very tight on time. I think we've got time for just one more question. And that's, do you have any advice for recent graduates who aren't sure what they want to do? It is difficult because there are so many options and it's difficult to get work experience. So obviously we've got many people here from many different fields. If people are uncertain on what to do, what would you recommend for them to find out, I guess?
Just a very quick piece of advice, because I literally got asked this by a friend's sister the other day. I typed into YouTube day in the life of, and loads of companies now get their new recruits or their new graduates to do a vlog of their first day or a typical day. And that's a really great way to get a flavour of the different jobs out there. So day in the life of a mechanical engineer, or day in the life of someone at British Airways, or day in the life of a supermarket manager. And you might find some YouTube videos that you find interesting. And if you've got time, why not?
Would anyone like to add to that quickly?
Yeah, I would just say, going back to my first point on it, which is just try and narrow down or get a sense of the type of industry that you want to be working in. And this comes back in terms of what are the kind of social media feeds you like? Who do you follow on Instagram? What kind of news articles do you read? So what are the things that really get you excited? So once you start knowing this is an area that I'm interested in, then look into how would I get that? So is it going to be a day in the life of? Is there a possibility to do a day's experience with them? Are there projects that are running? What are the opportunities that are available? But whatever you do, I would say just do something. Don't get yourself paralyzed by the fear of just being, oh, that there's too much out there, I can't do it. Just do something. Put yourself create a job of finding yourself a job, if that makes sense. So put some time aside every day just to do something towards getting you towards that objective, be it researching, be it sending out applications, be it connecting with people on LinkedIn, whatever it may be. Just set some structured time aside for yourself to be able to explore your options, and then give yourself time off to relax and just to switch off as well from it.
Thank you very much. I think that's the important bit as well, is that although we are here, we're talking about careers and we are talking about being job focused, but that, it's hard to remember sometimes to take that time out and the well-being and give yourself a bit of relaxation, because clearing your head can definitely help. We have tried our best to cover as many of the questions as sort of on the broad swath of topics that have come up. I'm sorry, because there isn't always time for all of these. I'm going to be speaking with my colleagues, and there will be a follow-up email going round. I'll try to include some links, and my colleagues will talk to the panel, see if they like to share their LinkedIn as well. So we'll get all of that out to you in an email post this, and I believe that there will be a video version of this going up on nextstepsupport.org at some point soon. Again, we'll try to include that in the email. I just want to say thank you very much to Aisha from AWS Educate, from Siobhan from Musgrave, Katerina from the intern group, and Isabella from Merkel, just for joining us today, because I think these are really, really useful sessions. So thank you to all of you very much for your time.
Well, thank you.
And thank you to all of you that tuned in. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And thank you for everybody who came and attended today. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.